welcome to the TokenMinds Podcast. I am your host, Fritzy, the Senior Content Manager here at TokenMinds, a creative engineering, crypto, and NFT agency helping businesses all over the world with their blockchain and NFT development, crypto and NFT marketing strategy, and token sales strategy. In this podcast, we will dive into blockchain and talk about relevant topics for businesses and founders. Today, we have our special guest from Immortal Project. Sir Philip, kindly introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Fritzy. Thank you very much for having me. As you said, my name is Philip. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Immortal Projects. Basically, what we are is a venture studio. We've got a number of different projects that we're working on, typically within the sporting and cultural verticals. We've got some very exciting things on the near horizon. We're very much in the build mode or build stages over the last couple of months, and we should be launching some of the MVPs in the next, I would say, a month or 2 months.
All right, but before we talk more about the Immortal Project, Philip, I would just like to first start off with I would want to know more about your story on how you got into crypto and Web3 yourself.
My background is actually a lot more Web 2. I was one of Google's biggest resellers or partners in Asia, where I was based for over 10 years. And we basically sold and managed the entire Google marketing platform stack, which is a full marketing tech or MarTech solution. And we worked with a number of different leading financial institutions like Citibank, Standard Chartered Bank, OCBC, and then we branched off into other types of businesses. But our primary focus was really about financial institutions and digital marketing. From a hobbyist perspective, I got into crypto in about 2017, where I started learning more about Bitcoin, as typically the entry point is. And then I started learning about Ethereum and smart contracts, and I was part of the whole ICO movement. It was a lot of hype and a lot of movement around the ICOs. I think a lot of us kind of struggled on trying to figure out what blockchain really meant for enterprise, or what was the actual utility or use case. That's why I think there was a lot of hype, and a lot of projects who came into existence didn't kind of make it through that ICO movement. I then decided to carry on my 9 to 5, if you want to call it that, and I worked with a telco in Thailand for a couple of years, and where I was the head of analytics consulting, and we did some really interesting projects across big data, where we productized the digital footprint that the Thai population would inherently have with their mobile devices. But then there were three things, significant events that took place at the early stages of 2020. And that was of course, the lockdowns and Corona that affected, especially Southeast Asia, where it really hit businesses hard, and small, medium enterprises really took a massive negative impact on them. And then there was two digital or technological things that happened within blockchain. The first one was the surge of DeFi or decentralized finance. The second one was NFTs or non-fungible tokens. Having that Web 2 background, I really understood what flaws, or what some of the mistakes that we made in Web 2, and some of the issues that we're trying to correct now, especially with privacy acts that are trying to reshape the industry, which is GDPR, namely data protection and data consumer privacy. And I think, when I started looking and started identifying really what the use case was for NFTs, I started thinking, okay, this is now a new way that people can take ownership of their own data, and a new way that they can participate within what wealth and value is being created online. And this for me was a very interesting turning point, where I thought, okay, well, for the crimes of what we've done in Web 2, where you basically got these very large central organizations like Facebook and Google, who have made an enormous amount of money and hasn't necessarily shared this wealth with, the wider population. And I think, not to sound too idealistic or romantic in a degree, but I do think that, those times are going to be rapidly changing. I think people want to take more control of their own data, and I think people want to obviously participate in that value creation, which I don't think is an unreasonable request. So for me, NFT started to really answer that point that people were asking for, and that's, how do I take ownership, and how do I prove ownership, and how do I create, new streams of revenue or even livelihoods. And then, of course, with the massive surge of Axie Infinity, which you will know very well because of obviously the Philippines, it's I think it's where the biggest the playing market is. People started making genuine money from playing a game where we started to define, play to earn mechanisms or play to earn platforms. I think it came about at a very interesting time, obviously, with people who might have lost their jobs, at retail or other, typical day-to-day jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, where people could now play a game, a video game, essentially, if they were early in, and they could make, genuinely decent money every month. So this kind of flipped everything on its head, and it became a very interesting avenue for me to research and kind of throw myself down this rabbit hole. And then at the same time, of course, DeFi, decentralized finance, started taking shape, and that for me is the sort of the economic backbone of what the internet could be. In terms of decentralizing exchanges, decentralizing the control of financial institutions like banks, or even other financial institutions. So those two sort of movements took significant momentum, and I decided then what I wanted to do for the rest of my life was basically try to correct the wrongs of what I've done. I'm saying that facetiously, but I know that the Web 2 was not built on the best practices. So I decided in early 2020 to make it my livelihood, and I threw myself into NFTs, and I've worked across a number of different interesting and exciting different types of businesses, from venture builder in Southeast Asia, where we launched a DeFi platform off the PancakeSwap. We also launched an NFT gaming studio. We were launching a metaverse where basically the business model was an interoperable business ecosystem where all of the different businesses that we were launching would fit into each other and eventually, preside within the metaverse, which would be this fully immersive shopping experience and e-tail experience. I then worked then I relocated to Europe, and I've worked across some gaming studios, PTE gaming studios. But then I joined a pretty exciting platform called Space 7, where I was the chief marketing officer for an NFT art curated marketplace. Unfortunately, the market, obviously is not. We are currently in a bit of a bear market, and unfortunately, we continue to go forward, but it wasn't from an economical point of view. It struggled. So I then had to pivot myself, and I've got my own business, and I consult across a number of different other types of projects, but primarily now my focus is within Immortal Project, and one of the projects that we're now, it's quite exciting to see take shape in terms of being a proper Web3 environment, is Chess Champs. And Chess Champs is one of the fastest Web3 chess communities. Not many people know how popular chess actually is globally. I think there's about 800 million people who play chess. It's also one of the fastest growing sports on Twitch, which is obviously the popular streaming platform. And Chess Champs is for us one of the first projects that Immortal Projects has been able to shape, and we're getting into an exciting space now where we're really starting to articulate what that means for a Web3 platform. So we're going to be launching a mint in just over a week, which is on the 20th of October, which is going to be minted on the Solana chain. And it's going to be very limited. We're only going to be doing 500 PFP NFTs, and to stand the chance of minting one of these free NFTs, you have to participate within our Discord forum and earn 100 XP by completing daily tasks or daily puzzles, and then you get given a pawn roll basically, and then once you've got the pawn roll, you just connect your Phantom wallets. You can mint the PFP for free, and that will then obviously give you certain really fun utility points like exclusive events that we're going to be holding, or we'll give discounts on certain chess scholarship programs, and then obviously we've got preferred deals or an IP deal with like Play Magnus Group or Magnus Carlsen, and Magnus Carlsen is the number one chess player in the world. So with these sort of IP partners, PFP holders are going to stand the chance of actually interacting with these celebrities, these chess players, and then get access to some of the smartest people in the world, which is going to be fun. But yeah, so that's a little bit about my journey. It's been interesting, it's been exciting, and I'm really excited about what the future holds. I think there's a very interesting debate kind of happening right now about the metaverse. Typically everyone has an opinion, which they're allowed to have, of course, but I think we're at such early stages with what that metaverse is. I think everyone's got a different version of it. And I don't think it's also necessarily brand new or a new concept. I think, you've got your like Second Lives, or you've got various different platforms that have been basically what we would define as the metaverse for, over 10 years or so. It's going to be an interesting one to be part of and see what that kind of shapes out to be. For me, ultimately, though, a metaverse should be the sentient being of itself. And I also think it's all possibly about interoperability, where you've got a whole lot of ecosystems functioning together, going back to the point of wealth creation, I think it's going to be an important part of what the new internet looks like, where everyone can participate, everyone's got equal or fair rights. I think also just to maybe and I know I talk a lot, so apologies for that, but just to maybe go back to sort of the ethos of decentralization. I think it's a bit of a tricky one for us because what time and time has proven that there's no real authentically decentralized platform. I think with the Binance Smart Chain hack that happened last week, it was proven also that they're not completely decentralized. And then you look at token distribution or allocation in a lot of these Web3 projects where they claim to be decentralized. You've got your pockets, right? Your whales, where obviously they can control the outcome, and basically they have a lot of control over the ebb and flow of the price. And then you've got DAOs, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. I think that's all beautiful in theory. I think from a practical point of view, we still have a lot to kind of prove. And will the essence of a decentralized autonomous organization actually continue and make the effort? The debate is out. I do believe that there will always be a central team to do the heavy lifting, managing, coordinating, project managing, and I think that's just inherent. But there is an interesting one or opportunity for people who want to take ownership or have control or say into the direction of a company. For me, it's an interesting play if a blue chip, maybe Web2 launched a DAO token, a governance token, and then the average person out there might have the ability to have input into maybe an incubation type forum, maybe like a Google or a Facebook launches an incubation type forum where people can participate in with what they might be building. Let's see what the future holds. It's going to be an interesting ride for the next couple of years.
All right. So I would just like to go back a little bit because you have mentioned that you are working on the chess camps, one of the projects for Immortal, but I would want to know more about Immortal, and do you have any other projects lined up for this project?
Yeah, we do. We're working on an incredibly large project with one of our partners, Hedera, and the H-Bar Foundation. And I can't say too much about it, but it sits within the cycling fraternity. And cycling is also an enormous sport, globally. And what we're going to be doing with this particular project is we're launching a very interesting content or OTT platform, where certain owners have access points, given through NFT rights. And then we're also going to be launching fantasy leagues with our cycling partners. And then, just to kind of democratize what content looks like. Cycling has been, it's one of those sports where accessibility or a unified point of contact in terms of the enormous amount of potential content that is developed or produced through cycling is kind of fragmented at the moment. So we're looking to, consolidate that into a central view or a platform that will be launched in the next few months. And the announcement will be coming out in a couple months. We just, one or two things need to be put in place. But that's going to be an exciting project for us because also we're partnering with a massive, hashgraph or chain within Hedera. And I think Hedera is a very exciting ecosystem to be looking at. It's one of the most cost effective and ecologically friendly if you want to, carry down that road. But it's a very interesting platform. It's also one of the fastest growing platforms, and we're very excited about the partnership and some of our partners like Reality Plus, which is a gaming studio out of the UK. And we're going to be doing some really fun things within cycling. So basically, I think just to kind of summarize what we're trying to do with cycling is we want to democratize. We want to provide an enormous amount of rich, deeper, immersive content experiences when it comes to cycling fans, and then having access to certain teams and some of these sporting stars. And I don't know if you're a cyclist yourself, but cycling is an incredibly tough sport, and some of these people are genuinely like superheroes. So having access to training tips and videos is also going to be part of it. But I can't say too much other than what we're building in terms of the conceptual design of the platform and our partners Hedera, Reality Plus, and HBAR Foundation. But it's going to be a very, very exciting platform. So if you're a cycling enthusiast and you want to get closer to the game or the sport, watch this space, because it's going to be a pretty exciting ride. Excuse the pun.
All right, thank you so much, Philip. So I believe that Immortal is working on projects that are more of like an interest-based, the way that you have mentioned, like the chess camps and this new cycling project, and you are bringing this interest down to NFT. So now you have also mentioned a while ago that there are a couple of challenges that we are facing in Web3. Can you share like specifically some of them, and how do you think we can fix them?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and something that kind of like plagues my mind every day. I think sometimes we get lost in our own jargon. We talk about NFTs, we talk about decentralization, we talk about various other types of acronyms that the average person on the street doesn't really know what we're talking about. And also the user experience is pretty poor when it comes to Web3. So onboarding is a problem. I think what we're trying to achieve at Immortal and with some of our partners is we want to kind of put the technology and the jargon at the background. We want to make it as accessible and easy to use, so it's a seamless, frictionless environment or platform where we're not actually going to go out to market and we're going to be talking about it per se in an NFT mindset or a Web3 mindset. We want to be talking about content accessibility. We want to be talking about ownership and having a say and participating within community. I think that's going to be an important foreground or the type of vernacular and jargon we use. And I think we're not a hype machine. So, Immortal, we're not going to go out to market with these enormous promises, and we're not going to get on the hype machine that kind of like over inflates the value of a project and just tries to look at it from a pure monetary perspective. We want to create something that obviously is sustainable. We want to create something that is engaging and something that our community members can really feel like they're part of. I think when it comes to the challenges of Web3, I think sometimes we drink too much of our own Kool-Aid. There's a famous saying like that, we're kind of drinking from the fire hose almost. And that's a bit of a dangerous one, because we can get lost in our own kind of, in our own, whatever you want to call it, hot air. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to break down those barriers, and we almost want to keep the technology and the jargon at the background. Of course, time and place, right? So if we do talk to a crypto audience, we'll use the right, explanatory types of wording or adjectives and stuff. But when we're talking to, like, say, a cycling audience, we're not going to be using any of these fancy terminologies. We're going to keep it simple. We want to keep it in line with what they are used to. Thank goodness for the likes of Netflix and Hulu and these other OTT providers. They have broken down what that means to stream content through an internet device. We're going to keep it in line with that. And also gaming or fantasy league components and gaming is going to be an important part to that. And the NFT ownership or custodianship is going to be part of it. But again, it's not going to be the primary focus of what how we're communicating the platform. It can be a token methodology, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. I think, if you're talking to a gaming audience, they're fully aware of microtransactions. They're fully aware of asset ownership. There's an enormous secondary market for in-game assets, and that was way before NFTs, became a buzz or a house terminology. So we're going to keep it very much in line with what people are used to and familiar with and comfortable with. The worst thing that any technology platform can do is use fancy jargon that alienates your potential customer base. So we're not going to be doing that. We want to keep it as simple, and we want to, like I said, make it as accessible and fun as possible. And I think that's also very important for everything we build. We want to keep it fun. Or what's the point, really? Why are we building all of these things? And, we put it in the hands of our customers, or rather community members, and they kind of go, yeah, this is great. But then, the need for me to spend X amount of time on this platform every day just to earn what I, hope to earn, it takes the fun out of it and makes the tasks tedious. And we don't want to be like that. So, and we believe you have to make something sort of habitual. You need to make something fun for people to come back on a daily basis. So that's kind of some of the challenges that we're trying to address within Web3. But the problem is also it moves so quickly, right? And the terminology changes and things constantly evolve. And every day you've got to, keep abreast with what's happening. There was a massive announcement by the gods over the weekend where they were, reducing their royalty fees to zero. And that shakes things up. Once again, everyone who's building out these models needs to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, now this is the new norm, right? And how do we then make this project sustainable for ourselves? And what other type of revenue streams can we depend on? Ultimately, I think it's a good move that they did. And it's going to shake up things. And I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I think royalties and platform fees are going to come to zero at some point. The competition out there is enormous, right? If you're going to mint on one platform that charges you 5% platform fees, as opposed to another platform that might charge you nothing for the next 6 months, of course you're going to choose the one that gives you nothing, right? Because everyone's kind of into this bootstrap mode right now, where we're trying to reserve budgets as much as possible. You're trying to make things efficient. So we have to kind of think more along the lines of a blurred kind of revenue model. So I want to just maybe go back to the Web 2 mistakes that were made were probably very much from an advertising point of view, but we got carried away with the advertising model. There's no doubt about that. I mean, when last did you go to a mobile website and the user experience is just terrible? Firstly, you've got to click away these cookie, disclaimers. Most sites go disregard all. Okay, great. So then you go through to the next, but then you get bombarded with all these pop-ups, all these ads. By the time you actually get to the piece of content that you want to read, then it's another pop-up saying subscribe now, or you've got 3 more articles to read. It's just a really bad experience. So I'm not proposing that we go down that road again with Web3, but I think there are very smart ways to kind of plug in various different revenue streams that might be feasible with Web3. An example of that would be, say, if you are you're running a membership and you for access to this club or membership on an annual basis, you own this NFT. That's basically your ticket. Now, if you think that you're going to make money never ending off this NFT sale, and obviously on the secondary now, considering that there's no royalties and there's probably very low secondary market royalties, you're not going to be able to sustain that business model. So why don't you charge a subscription fee at a reduced rate on an annual basis, and then you've got annuities in place? So I think what we're trying to do, or at least what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to find this hybrid model between Web 2 and Web 3. And I think we've made interesting headway in terms of Web 3 and how fast we've moved. But I also think that there is room for a Web 2 kind of mindset to come into play. And this is why more Web 2 people need to jump into the Web 3 space, because they've got the experience. We've got the 20 years or 2 decades worth of experience of building and scaling these businesses. And it wasn't easy for 20 years. We also had to convince why would someone basically subscribe and not have an ad blocker in place and all these things. So I think that we're trying to, not repeat the mistakes that we did in Web 2, but I do think that there's a room for us to introduce new revenue type of models within Web 3. So I don't think we have to be too precious about the whole, it's an ad-free environment, because at the end of the day, projects need to make money. I mean, that's what business is really all about, right? They need to sustain themselves, and you're not going to be able to do that without proper business planning and the right team to do it.
All right, so we're down to our last question. Do you have any suggestions or advices to people who are starting out in Web3?
Yeah. I love this. I mean, I get questions like this all the time, and I'm actually, I'm always more than willing to sit down and show someone how to get started. And for me, it's a rabbit hole that you just need to kind of commit to, and you have to run down, and lose yourself literally. And I think it's really about doing your due diligence, as much research as possible. Don't follow certain celebrities or influencers that are hyping a project. Always be not suspicious, but be aware of the information or the advice that you're getting from anyone. If they are professing something and they've got an inherent invested interest in what they're promoting, then there's a question mark around that. So do your due diligence, as much research as possible. Typically what you want to do though is you want to decide on an ecosystem to get involved in, because every ecosystem is like this massive, global community, which is really fun. And all projects within a community or chain typically work well with each other. There's a lot of collaboration. We don't work within this highly competitive environment anymore. So say you want to go Ethereum. The challenge with Ethereum is it's enormous. The volume is it's there. You've got the user base and everything, but that's something you have to take in consideration. Sometimes it can be too big if you want to start off small. Then you've got Polygon, and then you've got Solana, Avalanche, just to name a few. There's many different ecosystems. But then you want to also look at the health factor of that ecosystem. Say how many projects are being developed, how many, how big is the community, what's the sentiment value. Don't look at the token necessarily or the token price as an indicator on the health factor, because that can also be misleading. You also might want to look at the total locked value, or TLV. Which is typically a good sign because everything's on proof of stake, right? So you kind of want to look at the amount of tokens that have been locked up in smart contracts that supports a network system. It's not the be all and end all of the evaluation of an ecosystem or health of an ecosystem, but it is a fairly good benchmark to look at. Then, of course, when you talk about Web3, it's about an essence of a community of like-minded people. Go out and research various different types of Web3 projects and find a project that really resonates with you. Maybe you love soccer. Maybe you love gaming. Maybe you love painting. Maybe you love, canoeing, as an example. There are these various communities that are working on these very particular niche interest sets. Now, once you've identified these projects, research the actual project that is launching NFT. Look at the team. Is the team doxed, which is an important one? Doxed means typically are the profiles behind the project, are they public? Also, do they have the track record in terms of building businesses, scaling businesses? Do they have this ability to do these types of projects? Because it's not easy. You're going to have to understand what P&L management is. You need to understand how to allocate resources and, to obviously, make sure that there is healthy margins in a business. That's what it is. And then you want to look at also the roadmap. Now, a roadmap is a good indication of where the project might be headed, but it's also a bad thing because it kind of makes this hyper transparent and contactable or accountable model within a project, which is not a bad thing, but it can also be can be a little bit of a dangerous thing when projects make too much of a promise. Now, that's for me a red flag or an alarm system going on. If a project thinks that they're going to launch a game or something that should have taken traditional agency or traditional businesses years to build, and they're promising it within a few months, the chances are they don't know what they're talking about, and the chances are they're overhyping a project, and you are buying into this hope that they're going to redefine technical limitations which we currently have, and that's just not going to be possible. So look at the roadmap. Look at the team, look at the tokenomics of a project. For me, tokenomics is an important thing because you have to look at one, supply and demand. You have to look at what the potential value or sustainable value of a project is. Do they have deflationary mechanics like burn mechanisms or staking mechanisms? Something to kind of manage supply and demand. But it's not the only thing. I mean, if you're going into an NFT project, they might not even have, a coin or a token. Maybe they just have some NFTs. So you got to just take a look at that. Then once you've made a decision, download a wallet. Depending on the chain that you choose, maybe if it's, again, say Solana, you want to download the Phantom wallet, you want to load up on Solana or crypto, and then you want to buy the NFT, which is typically the currency of choice, right? So when you're buying an NFT, you're using a cryptocurrency. And then once you've taken ownership of this NFT, join all of their social media forums. Typically, unfortunately, a lot of that conversation or the community engagement is happening on Discord. I say it's unfortunate because one, the user experience of Discord is not fantastic. Two, there's also security issues. So you need to have double step or two-step authentication. You can also, you just need to make sure that your privacy and your security measures are taken in place with Discord. Don't interact or don't let your wallet interact with anyone that you're not familiar with and hasn't been fully vetted. That's also dangerous, so you're giving access to your funds through illicit third parties. So just be careful on that. But once you've chosen that forum and community, get involved. Start the conversation. You amongst people that you share an interest set with. It's a culture, it's a passion. So participate in the conversation. Talk to the moderators. Talk to the founding team. A lot of founding teams will have AMAs, an Ask Me Anything session on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, whatever the frequency is. Participate, join these AMA sessions, ask pertinent questions on how they're working towards milestones or how they're dealing with any setbacks and what do they think about bear markets, bull markets, all these sort of things. But the most important thing is just to get stuck in and get involved in the conversation. And then in doing so, you feel part of this broader cause, which again, for me, is what Web3 is. It's about a community of like-minded people that share a passion or interest set. So that's the best way to get stuck into Web3, and also just have fun. I think that's also what I'm trying to profess all the time is that, don't make it a job. There's a rubbish saying that, find something you love, make it a job and you'll never work a day in your life again. That's rubbish. That's not true. But there's a thin line between passion and love, and there's a thin line between hate and disgruntlement. So balance your time. NFTs and crypto, unfortunately, never stops. They never sleep. Balance your time, find work-life balance, but it is a fun environment to participate within. And it's just you got to get started. And I would highly think that this is the right time. We're very early in this whole next iteration of the internet. So if you're watching this and you're only starting to think, don't worry, you haven't missed it. In fact, I think this is an ideal time to get involved because there's speculation in the market that we could be turning around soon. It all depends on a number of different macro indicators, but it could be a wonderful time to participate and share your interest sets with other like-minded people, and of course take ownership of what that might be. Say, I go back to the canoeing example. You don't know what the future of the canoeing sport might look like, but it's going to incorporate technology to some degree, and that technology is most likely going to be delivered through non-fungibles. NFT tokens. So it's a good time to get involved, and it's a wonderful environment to build or participate within.
All right, thank you so much, Philip. That's one of the most comprehensive advices that I have heard for people who would want to start out with Web3, because some of them would just say, do your due diligence, but you have really shared step by step on how one would really get involved into the whole community. That is essentially what we're doing here at in Web3. So thank you so much for that insightful talk, Philip. I had fun talking to you about all of these things. We have talked about not just the Immortal projects, but really what the challenges that we have in NFT, and I mean, not really NFT, but the challenges that we have in Web3 and the general ins and outs kind of for this new industry or this new iteration of the web. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing your experiences as well.
Absolute pleasure. Anytime. And I think what we can do for your audience is with the upcoming mint for Chess Champs, we can reserve some whitelist seats for you guys if you wanted. And we can share the links obviously on the description or bio for you. And I look forward to it. And thank you very much for having me on as a guest. Apologies for talking a little bit too much, but I do love this space. And I have been in it for a couple of years, which kind of makes me a little bit of an OG. Sometimes an old man in the room, but anyway, I enjoyed being here, and thank you for having me on.
All right, thank you so much, Philip. Until the next one. Bye.
Pleasure. Thank you.